Welcome to another episode of Citizen Remote's Q&A visa series, I guess we call it. I'm joined today by our team in Malaysia, John Wong. John, I'm really excited about this. I feel like it's been forever since we've been trying to schedule this, so I'm excited we finally both have some time to answer some questions about Malaysia. I know it's a great digital nomad option, and there's plenty of other options that we can potentially dive into on this call. But it's a great option in kind of that Southeast Asia area for longer term stays. A lot of surrounding countries in the region, they're 6 to 12 months at most. I know Malaysia has 2 years. They've recently opened it to a lot more people. It used to just be IT related, but now there's a lot more. Happy to dive in, and thanks so much for taking the time and joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right. So just to kick things off, I know that there is the digital nomad visa. Obviously, that's going to be a highlight of this. Maybe we can just explain, what that visa looks like and who's eligible for it.
Okay, so let's start by explaining what the Malaysian Digital Nomad Pass is actually. In actual fact, it's actually a professional visit pass. So basically, it's a professional visit pass that is actually granted or applied for by people who come into Malaysia for a very short period of time. Like, for example, singers, pastors who just come into Malaysia, do one performance and leave the country. So the digital nomad pass basically serves the same purpose, but in this case, it can be granted all the way until 12 months. So it's actually a professional visit pass. Other than that, if you were to look at it, there are many other passes that can be granted to those who want to come to Malaysia. Other than the professional visit pass, like for example, you can also have employment pass definitely, and other than that, you can also go for the MM2H pass, which is actually a different kind of pass, which is a social visit pass.
Okay.
Hmm.
And so maybe really quickly, so there's a few things that you touched on there. You said it's granted for 12 months, the digital nomad specifically. Is that extendable? Because I've seen 2 years. Is that accurate that it is extendable for another 12 months, or is it only 12 months and then you have to find another pathway to stay in Malaysia?
Okay, so first and foremost, the 12 months is actually dependent, first and foremost, on your duration of your contract. So just like any other kind of work, it depends. So first and foremost, if your contract says, okay, you get to work for, your duration of contract is, let's say, 3 years. So of course, what you can do is you can apply first and foremost for 12 months first because the maximum is 12 months. The minimum is 3 months, so it's basically between 3 to 12 months. So in your first application, you will get 12 months. So under the digital nomad pass, under the Rantau, you get to have one renewal, meaning depending on your contract, if your contract requires you to work for at least another 12 months, then you can apply for another 12 months, and that's it. You can only have up to 2 years.
Okay, perfect. And that's what I thought. And so it seems, yes, so you could be awarded the full 12, potentially not, but you could be. And then should you still have, your consistent work status, then you could potentially go to 2 years total, and then that's it. Yeah,
Correct.
perfect. And so then is there a pathway after those 2 years? If somebody really loves Malaysia, can they shift to? I know you said that there's an employment pass, this is an M1. Is there a way that they can continue to stay and change their kind of status, or do they have to go home first? How does that work?
Now, here's the thing. The whole idea of a professional visit pass, which the Rantau Nomad Pass is to actually give temporary entry and permit to stay in Malaysia. So let's say if someone really loves Malaysia and he wants to stay on in Malaysia, the next thing that they can look at is the employment pass. But the problem with the employment pass is that it has to be applied by the employer in Malaysia, not the employee. So, for example, let's say if someone has stayed in Malaysia under the Rantau Nomad Pass, if let's say if he or she is able to find an employer who is willing to sponsor the person's employment pass, then yes, definitely you can, of course, in a way, we wouldn't use the word convert, but we will then uh, have that employer apply for an employment pass for this person to continue in Malaysia. So for employment pass, let me just explain a bit about the employment pass.
Yeah.
The employment pass requirement is actually not that stringent, but at the end of the day, first and foremost, there are, I think, at least three categories for employment pass. The first category is for highly skilled workers. The second category is for mid-level professionals, and the third category is for lower skilled professionals. In a way, category one is where the salary of the person is more than 10,000 ringgit a month. The second category is where the range is from 5,000 ringgit to 9,000 ringgit a month, and the lower category is from around 3,000 to 4,000 a month. The problem of if this is that at the end of the day, it is the employer who will have to apply and make payment for all these kind of employment pay and all that. The good thing about having an employment pass is that it is renewable as long as you need it. And once you have been in Malaysia for at least 3 years on an employment pass, the person can then apply for a residence pass, which would
Ah,
allow for longer stay in Malaysia. With the residence pass, then you can potentially even apply for permanent residence in Malaysia. But the thing about having a residence pass is that the salary of the person has to be at least 15,000 ringgit a month,
okay.
which is quite
Okay. Perfect. So a lot of good information in there. And so just to clarify, so obviously this is going a little bit broader than Malaysia. A lot of, especially in Europe, a lot of countries with the digital nomad visa give a residency permit, a temporary residence permit usually. So you're saying that on this digital nomad visa, from what I gather, you are not getting a temporary residence permit. You're just getting a longer visa. Can you? And so we're going back here to the digital nomad visa, but is that not temporary residence permit then that you're getting with that?
okay. Just to be clear, we are talking about the digital nomad visa, but technically speaking, it's not really a visa. It is a pass, and it's not really a residence pass. It is a professional visit pass. So
Uh,
technically speaking, it does not. I mean, it is not a residence pass per se, but it is more of a visit pass. So it's temporary. It's not meant for you to stay on for long. It is just meant for you to visit. It is there as a professional visit pass to visit as a professional.
okay. And so I guess maybe we can elaborate then on what the difference is between a pass and a residence pass. Like, what do you have more rights? Do you have more, like, what is it that having that residence pass does for an individual that visit pass doesn't allow you to do?
Okay, so let's talk about first and foremost visa. In order to enter Malaysia, you need you. It depends on which country you are from. Some countries get 90 days visa free. Some countries get 30 days visa free. Some countries get 14 days visa free. Some countries, well, basically those from those countries, when they enter, they have to apply for a visa. So what we call visa is basically more of like the visa that allows you to enter Malaysia. So once you have entered Malaysia, then the next thing is if you want to stay longer, then you then have to apply for a pass, as we call it. So the pass can be many types of pass. So if it's the DE Rantau Digital Nomad Pass, then basically it is a professional visit pass. It is not a residence pass. So residence pass is separate. Like for example, if let's say if you are a spouse to a Malaysian, then you get a residence pass for being a spouse to a Malaysian. Let's say if it is a different kind of pass, like for example, you have employment pass as well. That is also a different kind of pass, which is not. I mean, the whole idea is that the residence pass is a different kind of pass from an employment pass because residence does not give you the right to work. So
Mm-hmm.
merely gives you the right to stay on. Like for example, as a spouse, you don't really get to work. Whereas the thing that you would apply for, it depends on what is your needs. Like for example, if you are here in Malaysia just as a digital nomad, you are not intended to actually make an income or actually do an employment, take up an employment in Malaysia, then you can go for a professional visit pass. Whereas if you want to work in Malaysia and derive an income from Malaysian work, then you have to then apply for an employment permit, employment pass. But again, it has to be applied for by the employer. So that's the
Perfect. Okay. And so with that visit pass, are you able, the digital nomad, because obviously there's a difference between residence and all of that, which you just explained. Are you able to obtain like a bank account, or you're able to rent legally accommodation for that time? Like, can you explain kind of what are you kind of able to come in and get set up with a cell phone and all of that on this digital nomad visitor pass?
Okay, so first and foremost, we start off with perhaps renting a place in Malaysia. I mean, as far as landlords in Malaysia are concerned, all you need is to be in Malaysia validly. So the whole idea is that landlords don't look at um, whether or not you are and whether or not you are here legally or illegally. Normally, what they'll do is they will enter into a tenancy agreement with you, and it is for the person to pay up the rental uh, punctually, and from there the landlord just collects rental from you, and if you are in the country legally, then there is no issue. So for example, let's say if you have the professional visit pass under the under the Rantau digital nomad visa scheme, then you are in Malaysia legally, then basically you have no problem renting a place. That's number one. So secondly, like for example, if you whether or not you can open a bank account, normally banks, what they care about is whether or not you are in Malaysia legally. So based on my experience, yes, you can open bank accounts with the Digital Nomad Pass in Malaysia. The whole idea is that you are in Malaysia legally. It is no different from being like, for example, a student. You're having a student visa in Malaysia. The whole idea is that you are in Malaysia legally, then you will be able to open a bank account.
Hmm.
The next question is whether or not you'll be able to apply for a phone line. Again, in Malaysia, it's not that hard to get a phone number. You can go to any grocery stores and buy a SIM card. The whole idea is that you just have to register, and when you register the SIM card, all you need is your passport. You don't even have to declare what kind of pass are you under. So, in fact, anyone can get a phone line, even tourists who are here for a short time. So there's no problem.
Perfect. Perfect. I mean, so that ticks a lot of like that checks a lot of boxes there for people who are kind of interested in relocating. Is they're concerned about whether they're able to get kind of set up locally with a bank account with accommodations. Obviously, this pass allows that. And then I kind of shifting and pivoting slightly to a different category. A lot of people who come across Citizen Remote are interested in or are entrepreneurs. And with the employment pass, you indicated that a local Malaysian employer needs to sponsor you. Is there any pathway outside or for kind of longer term, longer than 2 years if people want to, for self employed individuals, people who have their own company, to stay in Malaysia or acquire the right to set up their business there?
Now, first and foremost, uh, to set up business in Malaysia, there are actually many ways that you can do business. One of them is basically to register a company. So any foreigner can become a director and shareholder in a company in Malaysia. And with that company, the bare minimum requirement is for that foreigner to have an address in Malaysia. So that's the bare minimum in order to run a business in Malaysia, to form a company. But other than forming a company, there is another way to register what we call sole proprietorship or partnership. But unfortunately, in Malaysia, foreigners cannot form. Not say cannot, but the thing is that yeah, you cannot form what we call sole proprietorship or a partnership. Actually, you can, but the thing is that there is a bit of a restriction in it. offhand, I can't really say what is the restriction, but
Hmm.
um, if you were to come in using a digital nomad pass, which is the professional visit pass, you are not meant. I mean, basically, the whole idea is that you're not supposed to be doing business in Malaysia.
Yeah.
So you intend to do business in Malaysia, then you're looking at a different kind of pass or entry permit.
Okay. So it's feasible, but a little bit more hoops that you might have to jump through. It probably provides some difficulties along the way.
Yes,
Is what it sounds like.
correct. So the whole idea is that there is actually a minimum threshold of a sum of money that you have to put in. So it, offhand, I can't remember what is the threshold. If I'm not mistaken, it's a few thousand or few. There is a threshold, basically, in order to do
Hmm.
business. Basically, the minimum that the foreigner has to put in, there is a minimum, basically. So yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah. So I mean, obviously, it's not open to anyone. Like you probably have to have some history with your business. It has to be open for a certain amount of time, I assume, and then you have to show that you're making a certain amount of money a month, which obviously we can figure out if somebody like that wants to come and inquire about opening a business in Malaysia.
All
Yeah.
right.
Okay. So great. So I mean, it does sound like there's a pathway for self-employed individuals. It does sound like there's a pathway for somebody who wants to move over and be employed. Should they have, should they find someone who's willing to sponsor them? And then obviously for the digital nomad pass, sounds like they can come over, open up a bank account, stay there, live there for up to 2 years, assuming they have work contract. Are they allowed on the digital nomad now? Shifting back to that one, are they allowed to bring dependents?
Yes. Uh, just to clarify, under normal professional visit pass application, normally there would professional visit pass holders are not allowed to bring dependents, but the DE Rantau program apparently is a different story. Applicants under the DE Rantau scheme is allowed to bring in dependents, and dependents would include children, the spouse, and parents. So
Okay,
yes, yeah.
perfect. And then I guess one other thing is taxes. Obviously, when people stay over 6 months, I say obviously for us maybe, but for anyone listening, maybe not so obvious. When you stay over 6 months, 180 days in the country, typically they're saying that you're a resident of that country and you have to file taxes. Is that the same in Malaysia?
Yes, it is. It is the same in Malaysia. So the whole idea is that it depends on which country you're from. First and foremost, you have to see whether or not there is a double taxation avoidance agreement between the two countries. So let's say if there is such an agreement, and let's say if the person comes into Malaysia under the Digital Nomad Pass as an employee. So the whole
Hmm.
idea is that the employer would then pay this employee his salary, and if the employee pays tax in his home country, and if there is a tax avoidance, a double taxation agreement between the two countries, then the person does not have to pay tax in Malaysia.
Okay. Do you know if they have to file still, or do they still have to file to say that they've paid taxes in their home country, or
Based on my limited knowledge, I think yes, because what happens is that when you apply for the Rantau Nomad Pass, one of the things which they wanted every applicant to do is to apply for a tax number in Malaysia.
yeah.
So yeah, you
Okay.
can't do that. You have to. I think you have to declare yes.
Perfect. Yeah, and that's pretty standard for most countries. There are a few that provide an exception because it's a short stay. Typically, they say that it's only 12 months, so it's not the option to extend. So that might be the reason there. But good to know nonetheless. Obviously, this is legal, not tax advice. So
Yeah.
there's a differentiation there. But thank you so much for answering that. So I guess one other thing would be kind of the timeline which these visas take. Maybe you can elaborate not only on how long you expect the digital nomad, but also how long you expect the like self-employment visa. Like how long do these processes usually take for different visa categories?
All right. So let's start with the professional visit pass. Normal professional visit pass takes up to 2 to 3 months to process. But for the digital nomad pass, what happens is that the processing takes around 3 to 8 weeks. So what happens is that you have to be ready to wait for around 3 months. So what happens is that those who wants who don't, for those who intend to take up the digital nomad pass, it is advisable to start early, at least 3 months earlier. That's for the professional visit pass. Let's say if the person wants to apply under the Malaysia My Second Home MM2H program, it is advisable to apply even earlier, 6 to 12 months in advance, because there are a lot more things to deal with. You have to put in fixed deposits, you have to clear insurance requirements. So uh, for those applicants, start applying 6 to 12 months in advance. As for the employment pass applicants, at the end of the day, let's say if the at the end of the day, it is for the employer to make the application. So it is advisable for the employers to start applying 3 to 6 months before the job start date, so as not to so that you don't really I mean, at the end of the day, when you employ someone, you want them to be able to start work when you need them to start work. So based on the experience that I have here, for the for category 1 and category 2, it takes 2 to 6 weeks to process in at the government side, whereas for the third category, extra screening may take place, which would be around 2 to 3 months. So that's why it's good to start early.
Okay. And you've mentioned this visa a few times now, and I haven't followed up on it. The MSH, the My Second Home visa.
Mhm.
Perhaps we can just elaborate very briefly, and then we'll wrap it up here. But really briefly, what is like who might be eligible for that visa category, and maybe a little bit about it.
Okay, so the whole idea about the Malaysia My Second Home pass is that it is more of, I mean, in Malaysia, it is handled under the Ministry of Tourism. Surprise, surprise. So it's actually more intended for tourists, in a sense. Like, for example, it is not meant for people who want to work in Malaysia. The person must already have money before they come to Malaysia, and they must already have a source of income before they come to Malaysia. So for the Malaysia My Second Home program, there are 3 tiers: the gold tier, the silver tier, and the platinum tier. So the lowest tier is the silver tier, and the whole idea is that when the person applies, the person must have a fixed deposit, must bring in a fixed deposit of at least 150,000 US dollar. So that's the bare minimum in order to apply
Mm-hmm.
for the MM2H silver tier um, pass. And other than that, I mean, the applicant will also have to purchase a real property in Malaysia worth at least 135,000 US dollar, equivalent to 600,000 ringgit in Malaysia. So it's not meant for those who are looking at employment or working. It's more of it is more of targeted at those who are looking at retirement, or basically enjoying their time in Malaysia.
Yes, absolutely. So it is good to know though that like as we were talking mostly about the digital nomad visa, there is a retirement visa. Obviously, it's not called the digital nomad visa. It's called the
Malaysia
pass.
My Second Home program. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's that, which I'm going to call the retirement visa, but it's the My Second Home. So good to know that there are plenty of options to stay in Malaysia. And then I guess really quickly as we wrap it up, last question here is what would be the income and savings amount for the digital nomad visa, just quickly for anyone who might be eligible?
There is no requirements for savings as far as the digital nomad pass is concerned. The only thing which the digital nomad pass looks at is your income. So there are actually two different categories. So let's say if the applicant is in the digital sector, or doing digital professional kind of work in the IT and digital sector, then the minimum annual income that the person must have is USD 24,000. Whereas for non-digital professionals, like for example, CEO, lawyers, accountants. The minimum threshold is basically 60,000 USD per year, the income of that person. So the whole idea is that you just have to satisfy this income requirement. You don't even need to have any savings. So yeah.
Okay, wonderful. And then obviously pass a background check, I assume, and have health insurance in Malaysia and all those things.
So talking about health insurance, you only need to buy the health insurance after
Hmm,
the application has been approved. So you don't really need to
amazing.
have the health insurance at the point of application.
Okay,
Yeah.
wonderful. All right. Well, John, this has been amazing, very informative. Hopefully, it gets some people excited about going to Malaysia. If people want to reach out to us, obviously they can find us through Citizen Remote. They can book a call directly with you, start talking with you. I know we've assisted quite a few individuals, and hopefully we can assist quite a few more to get people relocated successfully. Is there anything, as we wrap it up here, that we missed that you think is important to note?
So far, I don't really have anything to add other than the fact that I'm actually quite happy. Previously, the Digital Nomad Pass was meant to only be open to digital workers, but now it has been expanded to anyone who can work remotely. So the only difference is the income threshold. I personally am not quite sure why is there such an income threshold, but well, perhaps well, the government will have their reason, but the whole idea of 24,000 and 60,000, well, the whole idea is that it is not open to more people to come to Malaysia as long as basically you have work and you don't basically work, you don't derive a salary in Malaysia. So then
Yes.
Malaysia welcomes you. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to clarify on that really quickly, so the
Hmm.
24,000 a year threshold USD equivalent is for IT professionals, somebody who's like software development, something like that. Whereas
Correct.
the 60,000 threshold is for more like maybe business admin, somebody who works online but does anything outside of IT.
Basically, it doesn't have to be even online work. It can be basically work that can be done remotely. Like for
Yeah,
example, if you're an accountant, if you're a lawyer, you can prepare your submissions. Anyway, you don't really have to be
exactly.
in your office. That kind of
Yeah.
category.
Yeah, you can be on a beach in Malaysia and working.
In fact, yes,
Amazing.
yeah, we have lawyers nowadays who attend court through Zoom. So yeah, it can be.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, wonderful. John, thanks so much. I look forward to hopefully getting more people. Obviously, this is general advice, so if you're looking for your specific situation to understand if you're eligible, go through Citizen Remote. There's a link in this video. Book a call with John. Thanks so much, and look forward to helping people relocate over there.
Thank you.